One of our guys here at Engage Web is into this. He does sound healing and has a collection of gongs. I don't know why you need more than one gong, but he has many gongs.
And watching them do that and developing their own skills and their own passion for life, I could see their soul beginning to shine, and I could see what was theirs to do. So it was like having my own little study group in a way.
What was it that was holding you back?
What was holding me back? Well, I had a tendency to put other people, like teachers, facilitators, leaders, on a pedestal.
On today's Engaging Marketeer podcast, I am interviewing Caroline Carey, who helps people work out the real reason they were put on this earth. Because everybody's soul has a purpose. Everybody is here for a reason. But most people don't know the reason why. I'm not sure I know the reason why or whether I should even be doing this. So I'm going to find out from Caroline how she does that, what kind of people seek her help with this, and what is the process to finding out why are you here. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
You're most welcome.
You're most welcome. Are you in the progressive group for podcasting? You are.
Yeah.
So have you started your podcast as well now?
I have. I've got a podcast called Soul Purpose.
And how long has it been going?
I started, well, to be honest, I started at the beginning of last year, and I just did a few sessions, and I wasn't getting it really. It wasn't really working for me. And then I decided to do the course. I joined the Rob Moore Progressive Group. I was interested in that. And then there was the course last October, which was all about the podcasting. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a listen, have a look at this, and see what's what. And I was very inspired by it. And I thought, well, let's give it a go. And I sort of got it into gear, and I sort of ploughed on in first gear for a little bit, sort of, trying to find my way with it. And then I started to ask people if they would be interviewed for it. And that was a turning point for me. I had interviewed people previously for a film that we were hoping to make, hasn't fully manifested yet, a documentary. And some of the people speaking on that, I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This is my topic. This is my subject. So I asked them if they would mind me using it for a podcast. And they were quite happy for me too. So, I used a couple of those, edited them so they fitted. And then continued from there, asking people if they would come on my show, and they would. And I've been really enjoying it. So I've now got it probably into about third or fourth gear. I'd say fourth gear, running smoothly.
Not into top gear yet.
Well, maybe that's when I've got like 2,000 listeners and all that sort of stuff. I'm doing over 1,200 downloads a month at the moment.
Okay.
So I've been told by the podcast folk that's quite good.
That's pretty good, particularly for something that's very, very niche as well. You've got a very, very specific audience. Yeah.
It's very niche, but I am managing to ask people who've got good followings and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm meeting people and old friends and people I've worked with from years ago and I haven't seen for ages. So I'm really enjoying that connection that we're having. And getting feedback from other people about how they've enjoyed the show. And we touch on some really interesting topics.
What prompted you to want to start the podcast?
Gosh, all that time ago. I think it was just another... Oh, I know what prompted me. It was my husband actually suggested that I did some recordings of me reading the last book that I published. So I've got 6 books out there. And I thought, oh, that's quite a good idea. I started to do it. I got a bit stuck with it, and it's a lot to read. But I thought, well, I'll start doing some aspects of my work. I have a particular body of work that I created, and I thought, well, I'll start sharing that to begin with and get myself into gear with it. But then that all sort of stopped, and I've started that. It is rolling again, but I haven't yet gone back to recording the book, so that will come in time. I think I will start to do that again.
And I'm always interested when people start podcasts that are related to the business and the industry that they're in. What kind of successes have you seen with that in terms of reaching out to, say, potential clients or establishing better relationships with existing clients?
I don't know as yet. I think it's quite early days for the podcast, even though it's been quite solid now for about 4 months. I think it is still early days. But I do think people are connecting with me. I'm certainly getting people getting in touch and saying, oh, I heard that podcast and that was really helpful for me. I'm interested in some of the work that you do. Um, so, I'm just waiting to see really at the moment. At the moment, I'm enjoying doing it.
Hmm.
I don't have the big, the big professional mic, and I don't have the, fabulous, fabulous website for it all as yet. I feel like I'm moseying along and, just having a nice time with it at the moment. But it's become an important part of my work.
Yeah.
And so, I have stretched myself rather thinly with the amount of different things that I do. And the podcast has become one of them. And it's important for me, I'm realizing, is to focus on the things that really work. And other things they can have their place, but it's quite a lot to be dealing with. And so, but I'm very fortunate to have a husband who's an editor, film editor. He can actually go into my podcast and go, let's just shift that little bit and that little bit. And I like to try and do them in one go. I think that's, it just feels much more authentic in that way. But there are times where, usually I'll have switched off the recording and then they go and say something really fabulous. I think, oh damn it, I wish I'd recorded that. So I'm learning. I was like, can we just go back a minute, press the record button, let's just do that bit. So my dear Ben is wonderful at just piecing things back together again.
I think the secret is record everything. Record everything, because you never know when you might need it.
Exactly, yes. I'm learning. I've definitely got a lot to learn, but I am getting there.
You've touched on it there. It was a question I wanted to ask, actually, again, with people that start podcasts to help them with their business and because they enjoy doing it. How much of your time does it actually take?
Oh, well, there's booking the client in, and I have to say, I really like doing it quite personally. I like to exchange emails and look at calendars together and things like that. I'm not very good at these automatic. Here's my calendar. Click a button, and so if anybody
The Calendly links.
Oh, is that what it is? I'm useless with those because I just want to have a conversation with somebody.
It's impersonal, isn't it? It's impersonal.
It really is, and I find it. I just can't connect to that. So I know I'm sure it works really well for some people, but not for me. My calendar's all over the place. I mean, I have lots of grandchildren, lots of big workload, walking dog modes, all this kind of stuff. So it's quite difficult to work that out for myself. So anyway, but that's beside the point. I'm sure they're really helpful. But so there is that setting up the time with people. I tend to do about an hour on the conversation itself. And then obviously if Ben is helping me to edit, he'll spend some time with that, which he can do very quickly. And then it's posting up. So I wouldn't say it's a massive amount of time. Not really. I mean, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, I try and get my podcast out there. And that's my intention every week, to have one ready for that.
That's one a week you're doing.
Yes, I've got quite a few stacked up, ready to go, and I try and keep one, one step ahead of that. So yes, I'm at the moment I'm posting one every Monday.
Excellent. And of course, the main thing is you enjoy doing it. It's not a chore.
I enjoy it. Yes, I do, and I like listening back to it. And I'm choosing a subject that's really dear to my heart. It's not some random thing that I thought, oh, let's do a podcast about that. It's really close to me. And the thing is I've created a whole body of work about people finding, well, it's to help people find their soul purpose, what is genuinely theirs to bring into the world. That's what I had to do for myself. Kept asking the question, what is mine to do? What's mine to bring here? Not all the trainings that I've done and all of that stuff and my qualifications at school, which were none. I didn't do well there. what was it that was really mine? And I studied that and I worked with that and I kept asking that question. And when I look back on when I did find what was mine and I feel really comfortable and happy with it, when I look back at the journey I've had to take, that's where that's the map that I created in order to then share that with others. So I created the map, um, got it in a form that was kind of readable and understandable, and now I share that with others so that they can find what's theirs and really go through the soul seeking journey of asking that question, but also looking at some of the blocks, some of the things that inhibit us, some of the things that have where our light has diminished, our own particular light has diminished, and we're not confident, or we don't have the self-esteem that we might need in order to fully bring our gifts into the world. So we look into that journey. What is it that's holding us back? And once I work with people like that, then they start to move on and to go, okay, this is what's mine to do. And then they have the support of myself and the community to nurture that and to ensure that it is in some ways successful. Not always in the ways that they expect it to be, but in ways that they're going to find some kind of fulfillment.
So this is something you've created yourself after you've
Yes.
been through the process.
Yes.
So what made you want to do that, and what was it that was holding you back?
What was holding me back? Well, I had a tendency to put other people, like teachers, facilitators, leaders, on a pedestal, and somehow believing that they had all the answers. Until I started to turn around and think, actually, I've got some answers here. I've got something that's potent, and a story that's worth telling, and ways that I've had to overcome certain difficulties, um, like physical difficulties, like not having enough money for things, having a big family of children. I have 6 children, so looking after a big family, I'm quite stretched a lot of the time. Um, being a woman, in some of the work that I do. Um, and also having a story that has probably diminished a lot of my own light. So I was sexually abused as a child. I got pregnant at 16. I had rather dysfunctional relationships with men who were not always the best for me, as my mother would say. It's like, you have a tendency to choose lame dogs. That wasn't very nice of her, but we struggled, and that's not because it was just about them. I was unhealthy myself. I wasn't managing life very well. But as time moved on, and I worked with programs and things that really helped me, and I danced and I got very creative, and I started to ask for help, and really and start to move on with the sense of a business. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I want to be self-supporting. I want to work for myself. I want to be able to bring in a decent income. I've had to work really hard to engage with that and to be the person that I want to be. And it's only through sheer determination and showing up and doing the thing that I love the most that's really helped me to bring my light into the world. And I've told my story, I've shared my story. I was a very shy child at school, um, in the classroom. I would never speak up. I didn't have a voice. I felt very shut down in myself. And it took a long time for me to be able to speak up. I can do one-to-one quite well. In groups, I would always find it really difficult. Um, but unless I was making my particular offering, unless I was bringing what was mine, what I loved, into the space, then I could be talking till the cows come home. I was very free and very. It was almost like I was channeling something. Something was coming through me that was saying, yes, do this, and you're good at this, and you can do this. And I am good at my work, and I am good at holding a space for others in a process. And so I've had a lot of experience of that with having a big family. I was always holding a space for people's growth, and I watched my children growing up with the things that they love to do. We did a lot of homeschooling to begin with until they wanted to go to school, but I always encouraged them with the things that they loved to do. What were their hobbies? What were they passionate about? What were the things that drew their attention? And that was the most important thing, not the schoolwork, not the exams, not the results. It was what did they love doing the most, and fully encouraging them to do that, letting them have their own autonomy. And watching them do that and developing their own skills and their own passion for life, I could see their soul beginning to shine, and I could see what was theirs to do. So it was like having my own little study group in a way. I'm sure they would agree with that. But you know, they've had their difficulties as well, and the challenges, of course. And we don't get through life without those, especially if we really want to grow. So that was really important for me, and to witness that and to see that develop, and you know, my own struggles with that as well. You know, having to have a big family and also wanting to work myself and develop the thing that I felt most passionate about. So, you know, having that tendency to put others on a pedestal, I had to drop that and let that go and start to build myself up, and really focus on what it was that I loved, and continue with that. And I recognized the things that I loved as a little girl. When I was very young, 3 years old, I was dancing. My mother took me to ballet school. I just wanted to dance, and I wanted animals around me. I wanted fur and cuddly, you know, anything. and I loved writing, but I loved writing in a very particular way. I was a very poetic writer, partly because my mother had insisted, absolutely insisted, that I learnt to read and write before I went to school, because my brother, it's a big story, I won't go into all of that, but she insisted on that. And so it was, sit down at the table, you're going to write, you're going to learn. And I struggled with that immensely, because I was completely different to my brother. I wasn't able for it, really. So I started writing in this very poetic way. And I still do that to this day. It taught me, so grateful to my mother for doing those at the time. I've learned to really acknowledge my difficulties and my challenges as incredible opportunities for growth. You know, they've put me on that path. They've said, okay, how can I use this? I didn't think that when I was 3 years old, but to this day now, I look back on that and say, well, that was a blessing. That has really taught me to write in the way that I've learned to write, that's true for me. So my books are quite poetic. They have poetry in them. And my way of writing is you know, a bit of a free flow of words and prose and meanings. And it's also a very, very clear story as well. So I have good editors. I had to learn to have good editors. I wanted to do it all by myself, but yeah, I have a wonderful editor and support mentor with that now.
Yeah, we all need editors.
Yeah. Definitely, yes, yeah.
So how you mentioned your mother a few times in that, and the one was about the comment she made about boyfriends you had being lame ducks. How did that kind of reaction from your mother influence your relationship with her?
Oh, it made me choose even more, like lame dogs. It is actually dogs.
Lame dogs. Sorry, lame dogs.
I always went for the bad guys. I always went for the guys that other women didn't want. I wanted to pick them up, fix them, make them better. Addicts, you know, drinkers, all of that sort of thing. You know, I had a rough ride with that. My first boyfriend was blind and a diabetic. And when I was 16, and I had a little baby to look after. So that was a very difficult journey. I was looking after him, trying to look after a newborn baby. Not easy. For some reason, you know, I think probably because of the abuse early on in my life, I didn't feel that self-worth, and just thought, well, my role was to try and fix others who were as broken as I was. So, you know, my mother wasn't happy about these things, and she was even less happy when I got pregnant at 16. But, you know, my mom and I, we ended up being the best of friends. You know, I did a lot of work on myself to repair the relationship. You know, I couldn't expect it from her. She was very fixed in her ways. She was very middle class. things had to be, you know, she worried about what the neighbours would think all the time, and wanted me to be the perfect daughter, and I was far from it. I was having tantrums from about 6 months old, and she said that I would just throw myself all over the place and bang my head and do crazy shit. And she just used to think, what is wrong? You know, there's something wrong with this child. What have I done that's wrong? You know, or what mistakes have I made? All that sort of thing. So it was I had a troubled childhood, but I found my own solutions for that. I danced, I got out in nature, I had my animals. That was my sanctuary. And you know, and as time went on, we were great together. You know, we would have a really lovely time together, great relationship. And she died many years ago now, as did my father, who was a very quiet man, and but very lovely. You know, they were a lovely couple. Yeah, and I've got nothing. I don't hold anything against either of them at all. You know, I don't need to have. I'm a grown up. There's no point in blaming, being, you know, pissed off about how our parents brought us up. They gave me the life that I have now, and I really appreciate that.
But it's interesting what you said about your own children, how you didn't want them to focus on grades and educational excellence. It was about what was important to them and what they love to do. Is that in some way, do you think, related to the opposite for how you were brought up?
I think so. I hated school. I was so unhappy in school. It really, and I don't think it worked for me. I'm a kinesthetic learner, tactile learner, it's also called. I don't learn visually. I don't learn by being read to. I don't learn by reading. I don't learn by listening to a lecture. You know, I learn by doing, physically, making, creating, moving, you know, hence the dance and writing, all those sorts of things. So, you know, in those days, they would not have realized that I wasn't getting what they were talking about. I was sitting there looking out the window and hoping that the bell would ring soon. I was deeply unhappy there, deeply, because I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't being able to respond or understand anything that was going on there. And then I was sent to a convent, which was even harder because I was brought up Church of England, and we were quite a religious family. Went to church and prayed, and that was, you know, I went to Sunday school. It's a big part of our life. And then I was sent to a Catholic convent, which I'd never really understood. And the children who weren't Catholic weren't treated very nice. We didn't go into the plush chapels with the nice shagpile carpets and play with rosary beads, which I would have quite liked. We had to sit outside on the concrete steps in the freezing cold, waiting for the good little Catholic girls to come out. And then we'd go off to our classroom. I had scriptures lesson with one nun. The children who weren't Catholic would go into one classroom, and the Catholic children would go into, this was actually all girls, would go into another classroom. And in our classroom, we were taught by Sister Mary Edwards, who would talk to us about how not to get pregnant. You know, and if we kissed a boy, we would get pregnant. Well, she was right. I kissed a boy and I got pregnant at 16. But she also taught us things about how animals don't have souls. And we would argue with her, but animals do have souls. I know they have souls. Hence, I got really fascinated with digging up my pets after they'd died in the garden to see what had happened to them. You know, so she set me on a very particular path around soul journey. And I was going to prove to her that animals had souls, and we all have souls, and they have their particular journey on this earth. So it wasn't a wasted time, but it was, you know, we weren't, again, that was that light being diminished in our lives because somehow we weren't as good as the other girls.
Yeah.
You know, our femininity was quite scarred through that. Yeah. So, you know, lots of different ways in which I struggled with my upbringing, but hating school was the most difficult thing for me. And yeah, I didn't want to put my children through that. They went to school if they wanted to go to school. It was much easier to homeschool in those days. And for part of it, I was living in Ireland. But they had the choice. And, you know, that was just the way it was, and my focus was on you do what you love. And if they did decide to go to school, well, they had to go. And then if they decided not to go to school, okay, what else are you going to do? Let's look at this. Let's work this out. Yeah. My daughter decided at one point, my eldest daughter, she said, Mom, I'm done with school. I said, what are you going to do? Within 2 weeks, she was an apprentice at a hairdresser's in the village. She'd gone in there and she started winning awards, and she's a fantastic hairdresser. And you know, she really learned a lot about the quality of how she gave to people. It was very, very admirable, and I witnessed that on many occasions. It really helped her to grow up. It gave her life skills. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I encourage people with, is to look at the quality you learn from doing what you love. It's not just about what you're doing. It's not just the job. Yeah. It's what's the quality that goes with that. Yeah. So my work is as a facilitator to offer the work that I do and to hold a space for people and personal growth. And I do that with dance and creative writing and creativity in general and shamanic tools. The quality I bring with it is a gentleness and a curiosity, deep curiosity.
I could have done with talking to you about 2 years ago, I think. My youngest decided they didn't want to go to school. Lives with her mother, and myself and my sister were telling her, you've got to do this, you've got to go in, because it was GCSE year. You're not going to get any GCSEs, and they essentially quit. And it was the COVID year, the year that children didn't even do exams. They were essentially handed GCSEs. So she'd have got them if she'd stayed. And we're like, why have you done that? We spent ages arguing with her about, you need to do this. It's important for you to do this. And then after that, got the opportunity to go to a college, which I didn't think she'd get into with no GCSEs. But she quit that after about 3 weeks, even though that was the year, obviously still in COVID, they handed out diplomas for college. And she just didn't want to do it. She was adamant that she was going to go and work at Amazon in a warehouse. And I was so frustrated about this, because she's so intelligent, and just has no qualifications at all. Yet she's gone to work for Amazon. She's been there over a year now. She's doing a supervisor course at Amazon, and she's earning more now at 19 than I was earning in my mid-30s.
There you go.
I should have listened to her, quite frankly. I can say that now because she's not going to listen to this podcast, but she was right.
Yeah, and we have got to listen to our children.
Yeah.
We have got to pay attention to what they're saying and why they make the choices that they make. Why are they unhappy in school? And what is it that they feel is theirs to do? And what brings them happiness in their lives? And it's not to say everyone should take their kids out of school at the drop of a hat, but they should definitely be having those conversations with them. And we don't just need careers advisors. We need soul advisors to go into school and have those conversations with kids. Like, what is it that you really feel is yours to do? Not, well, you would be suitable. You've got the degree. You could go and do that job, or Billy could go and work on the building site over there. What other choice he's got? But does anybody ever say to the child, what would you really love to be doing?
Yeah.
And what would help you to do that? And where is the encouragement that you need in order to fulfill your own dreams? Doesn't mean they're not going to go through a difficult period to try and to have that be manifest, but they'll grow on the way. They'll develop their own skills. They'll develop the quality that is theirs. It's a growing up phase that we take away from children too easily. I've had to struggle, but you think about a plant. If we put plants to grow outdoors in the rain, the sunlight, and all the bugs, the difficulties, they are much more potent than if they're put in a greenhouse and given lots of chemicals and artificial light and heat and all the rest of it. They might grow and look beautiful, but they're not going to be as potent a medicine, or to have the minerals and vitamins that the plant that has struggled in the soil and got itself up there is going to have. It survives the slugs, as they do in my garden. But it's very true. I was talking to somebody on my podcast actually who talks about he's planting, he's doing medicine plants, as in Chinese medicine, for health, for healing certain um, body body things, illnesses, disease, and he's talked about this a lot, about, you know, you need to give them a natural environment for the medicine to be really potent, because all the medicines that are coming with plants in different forms, they just haven't got the potency because they grow in a greenhouse, or in a in a sort of factory, like factory farming almost. So we're the same. You know, we are part of nature. We need a certain amount of stress to help us to grow. Yeah, if everything's too easy, we don't exercise those muscles. Not to say we need an overload of stress, but we need some.
Okay. Tell me about the soul journey map that you talked about earlier, because I'll confess I know absolutely nothing about this. One of our guys here at Engage Web is into this. He does sound healing and has a collection of gongs. I don't know why you need more than one gong,
Lovely.
but he has many gongs, and he does this gong beating at a cathedral in Chester. So he's well into this. So he's tried to tell me a little bit about it, but how does this map work?
Okay, so it's called the Wheel of Soul's Return. Yeah. And if anybody comes along to my courses, and I hold a 13-week online course for people to study it and to look at their own journey in it. And what happens is we come in, we start to build a sense of community to begin with. We need community for a soul journey. It's not something we can do on our own. We need the support, encouragement, and the shared experience and story. So that's where we begin, and then we start to look at where we might be lacking in a spiritual, or a sort of having a power greater than ourselves, having God, spirit, something that we believe in, that is not just our own ego. Because quite often we can come to a soul journey full of ego, full of, oh, this is what I need to be doing. Nothing wrong with the ego. We need a healthy ego. But that, I stress that, we need a healthy ego. So we start to look at our own spiritual path, yeah, and to lean into something bigger than ourselves. And once we can get a sense of that, and we can trust that, or even just begin to trust it, we start to look at our innocence, and we look at ourselves as a child. We do some inner child work. Because I believe, and traditionally in shamanic and spiritual teachings, we come to earth with a soul purpose, a sacred contract, and that's already there in place when we're conceived. Yeah. And so the soul's journey begins pre-conception. Yeah. So the soul comes in with this purpose. It's up to us to identify it. Now, if we're wise and we're allowing our children to follow their own passions, to choose the things that they want to do, to be the person they need to be, then we'll start to see what their gifts and talents are, because they'll be showing them all the time. What's the first thing that they lean towards? Mine was dance. The little kid, I wanted to dance. That was encouraged. Thankfully, my parents encouraged that. My grandmother encouraged that. There were a few other things as well that were encouraged, and I grew from that, and I have to go back and have a look at those things and to see, oh, what was mine all that time ago. And then we start to look at our adolescence. We're looking at the what we call the spirit rebel, the time in her life. Now, your daughter depicted this very well. She chose for herself. She was the spirit rebel. She knew that it wasn't helpful for her to be in school, to go to college, to do those exams. She knew some part of her had to break away from the family mold, yeah, and to find her own path. And we all have to do that. So I offer work called the Leaving Home Story. And we look at our leaving home story. How did we leave home? Was it in a crash bang wallop, I'm out the door, thank you very much, but I'm off into the world? Did we find it difficult to leave home? And were we always pulling back? Did we have a traumatic leaving home where we chucked out? There are lots of different stories about leaving home, and we have to explore that, because they repeat themselves all the way through our life, and we need to We need to look at that. And once we've got the information, which we call the gathering, the information about our childhood, our birth, our childhood, our adolescence, the rebel nature within us, we have what we call, we've hunted and gathered for for the blueprint that we came to the world with. And then we move on into what we call the deeper knowing. And this place we start to apprentice to our own story, not apprentice to a university or some other course or whatever. We're literally apprenticing to our journey. And so we make that our study. What did this mean? What did that mean? When I met that person, what were they bringing into the puzzle? What were they helping me with? How did I grow from this experience? And we start to look at all those different stories as part of our education, and we get creative with them. So we work with the artisan, I call it artisan, I like these old-fashioned words, but it's the artist or the lover of life, and we begin to create from that archetypal place. And what is it that I need to create? What do I need to make? I started designing the Wheel of Soul's Return at that point. I started designing my own body of work and what it was that I knew was mine to bring into the world. And I got really creative with it. I made things, I painted things, I wrote books about it, started developing it in that way. And then it's the thespian, the actor, who has to stand on the stage of life and go, here I am, okay, here's my flyers, here's my social media platform, here's my books, here's my this, that, and the other, my podcast, whatever it is. We have to step up and go, yeah, I've realized what's mine to do. Now I've got to show it to the world. And that's where our sovereign self can really start to shine. And that light that was diminished in childhood starts to re-emerge. Yeah, that innocent self. And we start to fall in love with our purpose. And that's where our soul shines through. And we go, yeah, this is why I'm here. This is what's mine to do. And we feel that excitement of the child that says, yeah, somebody's seeing me, somebody encouraging me. I'm doing what I know is mine, and I'm happy with that. And so we go through this course, identifying each of these different stages, and I give people tasks to do and creative bodies of things to create. So I might ask them to draw a particular map about a soul, part of their soul journey. I ask people to connect with each other throughout the week so that they have a connection with somebody else. They can share their story. We do drum journeys. We use traditional shamanic tools for that because they really connect to the soul part of us that wants to wake up. And I'll ask them to write a little story about something, just a page of words that they can share. We make medicine bags, we make spirit masks, we make talking sticks and our own staffs. And these are all old traditional ways of working to do soul work and shamanic tools. And so we work with that, and then we start to look at how we're going to develop that further. And there are different archetypes then that support the sovereign self, the true self, to really shine in the world, and to remember that we can very easily fall into the likes of grandiosity, to get a bit power mad. We see that a lot in the world. World leaders can get power mad, and it's all about the power. It's all about self aggrandization. It's all about me kind of thing, and we need or the other side of that is that we can abandon ourselves. We might abandon our gifts, and so I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I can't push forward, my thespian shrinks, I'm not able to step up. So we're abdicating the throne of our sovereign self. That's the shadowy side of that, two shadowy sides of that. So we need the archetypal qualities and the community that are going to help us with that, to step up and really be who we're here to be. And that's that's a process that I take people on bit by bit. So it's not about just getting on that stage and saying, oh right, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to bring to the world, and then crash bang, well, somewhere you're falling back down because it hasn't got the foundations of true growth. it hasn't got the foundations that you're standing on. You're saying, well, yeah, I've done the work I needed to do on myself in order to get here. Is it making sense? Yeah.
It is. I
I
mean,
completely.
do you are you saying that then everybody has a reason that they're here? Effectively, everybody has something that
I
their
believe
soul is
so.
put here for, but most
I
people
believe
don't
so.
know why.
Yeah, I do believe that. I do. I absolutely do believe that. I think there is a calling in everybody. And it's not all kind of woo woo airy fairy, or sort of like some sometimes it's just a simple thing that we're here to do and to bring into the world. We could be fulfilling our soul purpose just by working in a restaurant, or working in the shoe shop, or being a taxi driver. That might be absolutely perfect for that person. They might be really happy with that, and that's beautiful, and that's great, because they're going to be bringing their soul quality into that work, and making other people happy. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, are you happy in it, is the question I would ask. Are you feeling fulfilled and joyful? Do you get up in the morning and go, yeah, I can't wait to get to work today, it's really fulfilling me?
Is that effectively it then? If you're feeling really happy and content and fulfilled in life, then chances are you are doing what you should be doing. But if you're not,
Look, I can't say for other people, only they can answer that question. But I'm here, and I offer this work for those who go, do you know what, I think there's something more to life than this, and I want to know what it is, or I want to know why I set up a body of work, or I create something, or I get a job and then I drop out at the drop of a hat. I can't do it. I can't keep going with something, and I just keep changing my job over and over again. Chances are they haven't really found what they really want to be doing. Yeah. And there might be some work from childhood or from adolescence, their leaving home story, their birth story, might be something that they need to pinpoint that goes, aha, oh right, I see why that pattern exists in my life. I see why everything keeps falling apart in that moment. I understand now why I'm repeating the same old habit over and over again. Repetition is a fantastic resource, because things show up constantly that need to change, or that we can really learn something from. Yeah. So if you look through your life, you look through your life, what keeps repeating itself that you struggle with? There's a lesson in that. It's not just doing the same things. We hear this all the time, doing the same thing, expecting different results.
definition of
So
madness.
it is, exactly. And we are pretty mad, this society, yeah? So so it really is about, yeah, taking a moment to go through the process, to start to identify where things, we're coming up against the same difficulty, the same problem over and over again, and say, well, am I going to do something different? Am I going to get a different perspective on my life? Is that going to change? Yeah. Or am I happy to just keep going? Okay.
There's a famous quote. I can't remember who it's by. You may well know, because it relates to what you've just said perfectly. And it's the two most important days in your life: the day you were born, and the day you find out why.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, I can't remember who said it either, but it's absolutely true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do people? How do they know that they need to speak to you? What is it they feel that makes them think, do you know, I'm just not sure?
I think it's just a feeling. I think it's just, oh, nothing's working, something's wrong. I'm going to try this. Most people come to me and say, I just got a sense that I needed to talk to you. I just got a sense that this work could be the thing that I'm looking for. That's where I get most people come to me with. It's just a gut feeling, and it's not a thinking thing. I work with the soul, I work with emotions, I work with the heart. I don't analyze particularly. I'm not a very analytical person in that respect. But they see something on social media or the website, and they come through and they just say, oh, just so happened to see this today, and I'm almost surprised at how I came to see it, but I did, and I'm following it, following through.
And are you able to give an example of somebody that you've helped, without obviously giving names, but the kind of thing that they were doing and they weren't happy with, and now they have a purpose and what it is?
I have one beautiful student who is still working with me, still working this process. And yes, she realized what was hers to do and what was hers to bring, and it was working with children. And it was a very particular project she wanted to do. I won't name it because I don't have, she hasn't given me permission to at this stage. But yes, she started to build a little school and a space for children to connect with nature, and making particular, there's a very particular thing that she makes, and she sent me one when she first got it. It's a little children's tool for working in nature with, and it's beautiful, and you can tell that when she talks about it that her soul is so connected to it, and that it's bringing so much light into her life, and it's got its struggle. She's having to build it. She's having to create this whole new platform that she never expected to create in the first place. But doing the soul work, doing the 13 weeks, really showed her that this is what she was here to be doing. Most people tend to find the quality more easily than they find the actual purpose, the vocation, if you like. It seems to come more easily, but it takes time, and people need to really commit to the journey. And what sometimes happens is people get halfway around the wheel, and they get to the artisan, where we're literally turning from being a victim to our past story, and then turning into being creative with it. And for a lot of people, they're very comfortable as the victim, because as a victim you can blame others, you can blame your family, you can blame your teacher, you can say it's everybody else's fault but mine, and we don't grow from that place. And so people can get very stuck there. But those who say, do you know what, I'm not a victim to my story, I'm actually going to make something of my life, they're the ones that go on to do something really creative, and start to change. They let go of old patterns. They might, of course, carry on with their work, with their job, but they'll have a very different view of it. We need to be earning, we need to be paying our bills, that sort of thing. Not just, I don't encourage people to just drop their jobs and start being all creative, and and then getting the bank manager knocking on the door. It's not about that. But it's about finding what the patterns are that restrict you, that make you unhappy. And I often see people in jobs where they're unhappy, but what they haven't done is that they've got this sort of more masculine role, so that's feeding them, that's nourishing them, that's bringing in money for the bills, that's it's very structured, but they haven't fulfilled the creative aspect of their life, the soul part of their life. And sometimes I believe we do need both. We need the work that's going to pay the bills and keep us grounded and keep a roof over our heads, but we also need to be fulfilling that soul part. And if the vocation takes off and suddenly it does become a way to earn a living, then great, you can let go of the day job. But it's important to keep a balance on these things. So if I'm only going to work from 9 till 5 and bringing in the paycheck and in a rather miserable way, and I'm not fulfilling that soul part of me, then there's going to be there isn't the harmony that's necessary for life, for really living.
So anyone listening to this needn't worry that you're not going to find some 7-figure earning hedge fund manager who's going to quit their job and start doing watercolours. It's about doing the things that you like, whilst also maintaining your responsibilities as well.
Exactly. There you go. That's got it in a nutshell. That was it.
So how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me, well, they can email me, they can go on my website, caroline@middleearthmedicine.com, or my website is middleearthmedicine.com. I'm on social media. I've just joined TikTok, actually. That's a lot of fun. I thought I will never join TikTok. It's all about lipstick and beefing up muscles in a gym. I looked at it. I thought that's for the kids, and then I started to. Well, I was instructed on a podcast course. So TikTok is a really good thing to be on these days. So I joined TikTok and actually found some really nice older grandmothers, and they're like with lovely messages. So I've started doing that. So you can find me on there. Caroline Carey 62. I'm on as that, and I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. I use all social media platforms. I loved what you said about not using, people who don't use social media, and that it's a bit of a strange one in this day and age, because I'm somebody who years ago, when I first started my business, I was stuffing envelopes with flyers that I'd had to make, writing the addresses on, sticking stamps on, which you had to lick in those days. It was horrible. Get my kids to do all that, and spend a fortune posting them out and sending them off to people's homes. And it would cost a fortune. It was a heck of a lot of work. People don't realize how lucky they are having social media these days, because you can put something up there and it doesn't cost you, and it's kind of easy. There's a dark side to social media, of course, we know. And we have to be sensible about that. And anybody can put any course up and stuff, but have they done the work behind it? We have to ask ourselves that sort of thing. But it's not always easy, but it is a gift on many levels.
And how's that working for you in promoting your business?
Oh, I think it's been amazing. It's been an absolute godsend for me. I think it's where I get a lot of my clients, a lot of people coming to work with me, is definitely through social media. Yeah, they can see, there's film, there's ways that they can connect. It's instant. It's a fantastic platform that we have, if we use it wisely.
If we use it wisely, yeah. And you mentioned TikTok. How much effort are you putting into TikTok, or are you repurposing stuff that you record for the podcast?
No, I've just started TikTok about 2 weeks ago. It's very new to me, and I'm playing with it at the moment and having fun with it. I'm just recording a little bit about my work every day and posting it, putting little stars on it, and sort of trying out the different ways of writing. And so, oh, this is a new toy. I'll have a go at this. But yes, that's all I'm doing at the moment. I'm not reposting anything, or it's just in the moment. I'm very spontaneous in everything that I do. Very spontaneous.
And are you trying new platforms? Have you gone onto Threads yet?
I've gone onto Threads.
Excellent.
Yeah, sure. I'm not too sure about Threads. I put a few questions up and a few little bits. I didn't really get much of a response. People are following me, but I haven't quite grasped it yet. It's early days.
I think a lot of people have gone onto it because obviously it's tied to Instagram, so its user base is probably the fastest growing social media platform ever.
Right.
But whether they're actively using it on a daily basis is a different matter.
Yeah. I pop in there and have a little look and see what's going on. We'll see. It's taken me this long to get onto TikTok, So.
One step at a time.
One step at a time, yeah. Let me get used to this one first, then I'll catch up with that one.
All right. Thank you very much. We're just about out of time. It's been a pleasure, and I've learnt stuff I didn't know. Again, I'm learning loads doing these podcast interviews.
That's what I find with my podcast. I learn things from other people and shared interests and bits of information. It's just great. It's just such a lovely way to connect with people around the world.
It is. I recommend everyone do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Darren, for asking me.
My pleasure.
It's been lovely to share with you.
Thank you.